and Jamie's going to try to sum up the conference in 30 seconds.
Harm reduction, great.
Yay!
Now, I know it's been a long day, and it's been a really interesting day, I hope you agree. The programme says that it's a multi-thematic conference, which is fantastic for you guys, but it's not great if you've got to sum it up in 5 minutes. So, for me, sat there taking notes for most of the day, the one thing that came through, the one thing that stuck in my mind is the idea of harm reduction as meeting people where they're at. I think it was Matt, I think you said this in your presentation, but for me it came through, and just bear with me as to why. In the morning, in the early part, we learnt about, you know, for many people, where they're at has changed, or it is changing. And staying true to the principles of harm reduction, we can't just focus on what we might call the typical heroin and crack using clients. We have to reach out and reach these new people, and we have to reach them in these new ways, despite the fact that the funding is tied to the former group in many cases. But we need to support, and we need to reach groups like the people using a range of drugs that Adam mentioned in the survey, including all the Scrabble drugs that you mentioned. The people who are using the web as a place to discuss drugs, to buy drugs, to sell drugs, to learn about drugs. But that's where we need to be. And the people using ketamine, using steroids, you know, we had some fantastic presentations. The people in prison, of which unfortunately there's still far too many in the UK. And so we need to meet them where they're at. But at the same time, that last session that we just had reminds us that there's still a lot of people who we still need to meet in the traditional ways. And we can't forget that group when we're reaching out to new groups. And, you know, we just have to try and get that balance right. And we have to respect the rituals. We have to provide them with the proper, the treatment and testing and all those interventions that we know work. And we have to stay true to that. The key thing for me, because I was trying to think of trying to think of how I can tie it all together. But then Sarah's fantastic keynote kind of tied it all together for me, because the key being that we have to stay true to that principle of meeting people where they're at, not meeting them where the government tell us they should be. And that, I think, these kind of events in the Harm Reduction Cafe that Hill organised last night, they're a fantastic reminder, if only just to give us that bit of solidarity, but that is what we have to do. That is what this is all about. That is what we have to continue doing. We have to ride this storm, because I do believe it's a storm rather than a natural disaster. But I do think we have to just ride that out. It will improve, I do believe that. Maybe I'm just blindly optimistic. But if we can keep hold of that basic principle of meeting people where they're at, and we can keep thinking of the services we deliver in terms of the people, rather than the targets and rather than what some farcical government document is saying, then we can stay strong and we'll come through it. So that was, for me, in 5 minutes, the whole conference.
Thank you. Thank you.